Hello and welcome to this Wednesday episode of the World Report on NDTV. I'm Arjun, Samar, Mahendran, and here's what's making news around the world. An earthquake of magnitude 8.8, one of the world's strongest, in fact, struck Russia's far eastern Kamchatka Peninsula early this morning. It generated a tsunami of up to 4 meters or 13 feet, damaging buildings and prompting evacuation warnings in the area and several areas in Japan and even the United States. Today's earthquake was serious and the strongest in decades of tremors. Kamchatka Governor Vladimir Solodov, in fact, said in a video posted on Telegram messaging app. He added that a kindergarten was damaged due to strong tremors. Now, the first tsunami wave hit the coastal area of Severokutsk, the main settlement on Russia's Kuril Islands in the Pacific. Now, a tsunami with height of 3 to 4 meters was also recorded in parts of the Kamchatka Peninsula. For more on this, I'm joined by Sputnik's special correspondent, Christina Malik from Moscow. Christina, first of all, what's the latest you are picking up? And secondly, how's the area, specifically the Far East, bracing for these tsunamis?
Well, first of all, it's necessary to say that this earthquake, it was the strongest one in the region since 1942. Really, as a miracle, there is no injuries, no casualties, only, as the Kamchatka governor said, a wall collapsed at one of the kindergartens in Kamchatka, and nothing really more as damages. There are damages inspections. They are underway at key facilities, including schools, hospitals, and kindergartens. They are looking and checking all the buildings, including the residential one. The thing is, all the infrastructure and buildings, houses in this area are built in order to resist such earthquakes or tsunamis. So that's why there is no real damages. And I think it's really positive one because we haven't seen such a big earthquakes, and it was a really historical check for our damaging systems, and it was checked successfully, I think.
Seems to be the silver lining, the very silver lining here, that despite such a big earthquake, there have till now been no reported casualties, at least in Russia. Meanwhile, I'm also joined by Varun Tomar. He's a Tokyo resident. Varun, if you could hear me, have there been any special arrangements that have in fact been made in Tokyo where you are? And if there's anything you could tell us about what's happening in, over in the Hokkaido province as we speak.
Hi Arjun. So in the Hokkaido prefecture, there has been a tsunami observed in the morning when we woke up in Tokyo. There were trains not working and people did not know that what has happened. But later on, as the news started flowing in, we got to know that a major earthquake has struck Russia, the Kamchatka region. And right now in the Hokkaido prefecture, as well as all over Japan, from Honshu to the southern Kinki region, there are advisories, earthquake warnings, and people living in the coastal regions, they are moving to higher areas on top of buildings, and it's pretty hot here in Tokyo. So people are moving there in their cars. And the recent news, the update which I received was that the waves are getting stronger. So this time, the height of tsunami is not a concern, but the force would be something to watch for. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for getting us the latest there. Varun, and guys, please, of course, needless to say, please take care and stay safe and secure. Now, moving on to Washington, where a UN Security Council sanctions monitoring report on Wednesday has said that the resistance front, or the TRF, had twice, in fact, claimed responsibility for the dastardly Pahalgam terror attack and have published a photograph of the attack site as well. Now, the team in the report also cited assertions that the attack could not have happened without the support of Pakistan-based and backed Lashkar-e-Taiba or the LET. The 36th report of the Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team concerning ISIL, Al-Qaeda and associated individuals and entities released on Tuesday, in fact, mentioned that the April 22 Pahalgam terror attack in which 26 civilians were killed, saying 5 terrorists attacked a tourist spot in Pahalgam in India's Jammu and Kashmir. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's big statement on India tariffs ahead of the August 1 deadline. He says India has been a good friend, but New Delhi has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country. Now, the US president says India could soon face tariffs of 20 to 25%, but nothing's final yet. Meanwhile, a US team is slated to visit India mid-August, aiming for a border trade deal by this fall. Listen into what Trump said.
India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%. Is that what you're tracking, or what do you think the rate will be for India?
That they are going to pay 25%.
That India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%.
Yeah, I think so. Look, they're my friends, and he's my friend. And, you know, they ended the war with Pakistan at my request, and that was great. And Pakistan did also. You know. India's been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country. You know that, right? Over the years. But now I'm in charge, and you just can't do that.
Meanwhile, my colleague Natasha Israni unpacks the latest straight from New York City.
You will hear the reporter asking, so will India see 20 to 25% tariff rates? And what Trump first says is, yeah, he says, sort of casually. But then later in that exchange with the reporters, he backtracks and says that they're still trying to figure it out. We're going to see what happens. But basically, he goes on to call India a good friend, but then also diverts again and says that India has charged more tariffs than almost any other country. And then also talks about what he perceives as his role in ending the Indo-Pakistan conflict that happened soon after Pahalgam. And India has made it very clear that their strategy with Pakistan is clearly something that only they decide. But President Trump has still been talking about his role in settling that war, as he calls it. So it added a vague tone to his tariff comments. And the timing of this is all very interesting because it's just 2 days before that August 1st deadline. So it is being seen as a bit of a pressure tactic, perhaps, from the Trump administration, which is not something new. This is what they've done with other countries as well. But there's a larger story here, too, that there was a lot of optimism earlier from the Trump administration about the Indo-US trade deal. That optimism hasn't totally gone away, but both sides now acknowledging that more work needs to be done and more talking basically needs to be done to iron out some sticking points between the two countries. Meanwhile, India is actually preparing for a temporary a rate of 20 to 25% on some of its exports. It is expecting that, but they're still seeing it as temporary because there's still hope for that larger Indo-US trade deal.
On the Eastern Front, Russia launched a deadly overnight attack on Ukraine, killing at least 25 people. Now, this includes a pregnant woman and 16 inmates at a prison in the Zaporizhzhia region. Now, the strikes come just days after Donald Trump gave Russia a new 10-day deadline to make progress towards ending the war or face fresh Washington sanctions. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has welcomed Trump's tough tone, urging the US to apply painful and fair pressure on Moscow. He even called the prison strike deliberate, saying Russia knew civilians were inside the facility. Meanwhile, the UN has said that the attack may violate international laws. Now, Trump, speaking about his Air Force One, said Russia hasn't responded to his warning and has termed it a shame. A rare and powerful call from inside Israel. 31 prominent Israeli public figures are demanding crippling sanctions on their own government and the country over the worsening crisis in Gaza. In a letter published in UK's The Guardian, Now, the group, including top academics, artists, and a former attorney general, accuses Israel of starving Gaza's population and urges the world to act until a permanent ceasefire is in fact in place. The letter breaks a deep taboo in Israel, where the support for international sanctions is often criminalized. Now, it comes as Gaza's health ministry says over 60,000 Palestinians have in fact died in the war, with growing reports of mass hunger and aid blockages. Now, two Israeli rights groups, meanwhile, now are warning of a genocidal policy, a charge echoed by major Jewish voices abroad. In a major shift, the UK will now recognize the state of Palestine this September, unless Israel, of course, agrees to a ceasefire and commits to a two-state solution. PM Keir Starmer recalled his cabinet for an emergency meeting as the humanitarian crisis in Gaza only deepens, with more than 60,000 Palestinians killed, many of them women and even children. The UK's now 8-point peace plan calls for an end to all the war hostilities, no annexation in the West Bank, and long-term peace talks. If Israel fails to meet these conditions, formal recognition of Palestine will happen before the UN General Assembly. Israel has meanwhile rejected the move, calling it a reward for Hamas, while polls show majority of Britons support Palestinian statehood. Meanwhile, Starmer says the situation is catastrophic and the time to act is now. Listen in.
So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September, unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, agree to a ceasefire, and commit to a long-term sustainable peace, reviving the prospect of a two-state solution. And this includes allowing the UN to restart the supply of aid and making clear that there will be no annexations in the West Bank. Meanwhile, our message to the terrorists of Hamas is unchanged and unequivocal. They must immediately release all of the hostages, sign up to a ceasefire, disarm, and accept that they will play no part in the government of Gaza.
Over in the US, Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted sex trafficker and longtime associate of Jeffrey Epstein, says she's willing to testify before Congress, but only if she is granted immunity. Now, in a letter to the House Oversight Committee, Maxwell's lawyer says testifying from prison without immunity is a non-starter and warns she'll invoke her Fifth Amendment rights unless her demands are in fact met. Now, those demands include a formal immunity deal, advance access to questions, and a delay until her ongoing legal appeals are resolved. For prospective viewers, Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year sentence in Florida. She also offered to testify publicly if granted clemency in this case. The committee says it won't offer immunity but will respond to her lawyers soon. Meanwhile, a jaw-dropping $645 billion super yacht reportedly commissioned by none other than Bill Gates is set to steal the spotlight at this year's Monaco Yacht Show. The 390-foot vessel, nicknamed Breakthrough, runs entirely on eco-friendly liquid hydrogen. It was built by the Dutch shipyard Feetship and designed by RWD. Now, this luxury yacht boasts 7 decks and it took 5 years to build. But here's the kicker. Despite rumors, Gates has never actually set foot on this yacht. Whether he's the owner or not, Breakthrough is definitely making waves and headlines in this case before even hitting the high seas. And when it's time to step into a quick break, we'll be back with much more. Welcome back. You're watching The World Report. Now, news from the world of business, where India overtook China to become the top exporter of smartphones to the US, reflecting supply chain shifts in the face of global trade upheaval. India accounted for 44% of the devices shipped to the US in the second quarter of 2025, up from just 13% last year. Meanwhile, China's share has decreased from 61% to a quarter. Apple has quietly moved to relocate more manufacturing to India amid Washington's trade war with Beijing. The US giant, meanwhile, is grappling with competition from local Chinese players. It's closing a store in the country for the first time. However, a recent increase in shipments suggests it could very well be returning to growth. Here's a report.
A new day has dawned in India's tech journey as it's overtaken China as the top supplier of smartphones to the US for the first time. According to research firm Canalys, smartphones assembled in India accounted for 44% of US imports in the second quarter. This is a significant increase from just 13% in the same period last year. Not just that, as the total volume of smartphones made in India soared 240% from a year earlier. On the other hand, the share of Chinese smartphone exports to the US shrank to 25% from 61% a year earlier. Interestingly, Vietnam's share of exports was also higher than that of China at 30%. So what is the reason behind the sudden surge? The answer lies somewhere in the global trade tensions, as Apple is reportedly seeking to offset the risks and tariffs between the US and China. India provides the tech giant with much needed stability. According to reports, Apple has been speeding up plans to make most of its iPhones sold in the US at factories in India this year. Other smartphone giants such as Samsung and Motorola have also been trying to move assembly for US-bound smartphones to India. Delhi's smartphone factories are humming with new energy. Labor is cheaper, the political climate is stable, and the global appetite for a China plus one strategy has given the country the opening it needed. With over 1 billion consumers at home and the tech footprint abroad getting bigger, India is rewriting the rules of the global tech game. Experts say this could be just the beginning. The next stop could be chips, EVs and AI hardware. With Vishal Vivek, Bureau Report, NDTV World.
The countdown is on for a major space milestone. India and the US are set to launch their first joint satellite, Nisar, from Sriharikota this evening at 5:40 p.m. Now, the 2,392-kilogram Earth observation satellite will lift off aboard an Indian GSLV rocket and enter a 743-kilometer sun-synchronous orbit in just 19 minutes later. Now, Nisar, built by NASA and ISRO, will scan Earth with an advanced radar, providing day and night all-weather data every 12 days. It's in fact designed to track everything from climate change to earthquake and deforestation. It now stands as a symbol, in fact, of global science, shared goals and trusted partnership. NDTV science editor Pallav Bagla unpacks.
There is a newfound energy between India and America on the space program. And India and America are planning, through ISRO and NASA, to launch the world's single most expensive civilian Earth imaging satellite in the NASA-ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar satellite. I have with me Dr. V. Narayanan, the chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization. Dr. Narayanan, what is the stage for the NISAR mission?
So NISAR is nothing but NASA-ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar satellite. And in fact, the satellites are having two major payloads. One is a LSAR payload, another one is a SR payload. And one of the payload is realized by India, another one has come from USA. And the entire satellite bus is realized in India, in Bangalore. And this is basically for Earth observation related aspect, and it is going to be really useful in multiple aspects. And we are building the rocket. It is the GSLV Mark II rocket. And I was having a very happiest moment in the life. When Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji was in USA recently, and I was watching their press meet. And I was so excited to hear our Honorable Prime Minister addressing the press and stating that India and Indian Space Research Organization of India and the JPL USA has together built a NISR satellite, and which is going to bring lot of benefit to the both the
It's a
countries.
life-saving satellite.
So it is a life-saving, and it's a different satellite for different purpose.
India's head coach Gautam Gambhir was involved in a heated argument with the Surrey head groundsman Lee Fortis. Now, 2 days ahead of the fifth and the final test, in fact, between India and England at the Oval. We leave you with these visuals. Take a look at what happened.
Stop it. Don't tell us what we need to do. You don't tell us what to do. Okay? You don't need to tell us. You don't tell. Okay, you don't tell any of us what to do. You don't tell any of us. You have no right to tell us. Okay? You have no right to tell any of us what to do. Okay, you're just a groundsman. You're just a groundsman. Nothing beyond that. You're just a groundsman. You're just a groundsman. Yes. You are the groundsman. You are just a groundsman. Staying up above me.